So I'm going to actually just start at the beginning. And one of the things was kind of interesting to me about the way that this book started. I wrote the first sentence. When you start writing a draft, you write something down, and then, over the years, it changes a million times, and eventually it's often very different from what you first wrote. And the most surprising thing to me about this is with this book, the first sentence that I wrote as the opening is basically the same first sentence. It stayed intact, and a lot changed. The second sentence is very different from the original second sentence, but I really was very excited to think that I kind of captured the mood very quickly with this. So I'm going to start with chapter 1. For the second time in as many weeks, I cross the spine of Shatter Hill at midnight and spot fire at the crossroad below. The stiff shudders to a stop. From the ridge, the Oregon high desert stretches out before me. The moon hangs low over my right shoulder. The broad splash of the Milky Way and the sulphurous glow of the town of Samuelton on the horizon are both brighter. I'd like to believe I'm the only girl for miles. Kill the headlights, Melly. A knot forms in my gut. Kill the lights, shift into neutral, let gravity drop me into the heart of outrage. Cold air pours through the window and raises goose flesh on my neck. I don't need this. I don't want this. I've got an empty cot in the back of the stiff, the fusty brown transit van that serves as first call vehicle for Bhutan funerary service. Waiting for me at Crestview Assisted Living is Edna Crandall, who passed away 2 hours ago after a long fight with cancer. According to her funeral planning worksheet, Edna is survived by 4 children, 11 grandchildren, and a Pomeranian named Mickey. You got this, Millicent, I mutter to myself. The fire is an orange point of light half a mile away. Bonfire. High school kids at the crossroad, supposedly to summon the Shatter Hill spirit, Barlow County's answer to the ghost of Bloody Mary. But a seance can turn into a party in the time between everyone spilling out of their cars and someone lighting a fire. My last midnight at the crossroad, 2 weeks back, it was a mud-caked SUV and an electric yellow pickup. I'd have kept driving if one of the partiers hadn't thrown a beer bottle as I rolled up to the intersection. It banged off my front bumper, then shattered on the road. Through the open window, the stench of beer vomit and burning sage watered my eyes. So that's kind of the initial setup. I don't want to get too deep into it because then, I think the readings can often drag on. I thought it might be kind of interesting, though, to talk a little bit about setting, because Joe and I have 2 different approaches to setting. Joe's settings are very much based on a map. And there were points when I was reading the book when I was like, this looks really familiar. And then I opened up Google Maps and I looked down there and it's like, by golly, he's got this, down to the, like I could almost picture him, measuring it out. And like, it's this far from the road to the river. And it's really fascinating. So maybe, Joe, you could talk a little bit about why you chose the setting that you did and how you explored it, because I think it was really interesting.
Well, they say you write from experience, and I certainly did, and largely it was inspired by my brother Mike's hunting and fishing expeditions and him taking me along, and our mishaps. Now, obviously, we survived them. So many of the mishaps although they might be a bit exaggerated here in this work of fiction, many of them did occur in one way or another, and we survived them. However, some of the characters in the book may not be quite so lucky. But Willamette River was probably one of the scariest situations I'd ever been in for hunting, and that was coming back from for a Christmas break from Nashville, where I was part of a faculty there, and came back for Christmas. My brother says, I got a new place to hunt. You're gonna go. I'll get you up in the morning. And sure enough, 3:30 in the morning, he gets me up, and 4 o'clock, we're out in his boat, going out into the Willamette in pitch darkness. And the fog was so thick, it was like crystal crystalline kind of sparkles all through what I could and couldn't see. And he sticks me in the bow with a Q beam and says, "Watch out for BMFLs." And so away we go. And we're going in high water just after the rains. And sure enough, we hit a log right over the the boat went right over it and down, and he didn't blink. It didn't faze him. And I'm sitting here wondering, how do I get out of here? So that's one example of some of those experiences that just sort of built up over time and said, okay, there's a story here.
Yeah. You do a great job. I mean, there's a really strong sense of place. I really felt like, I mean, even the scenes when you're describing going down the river in the fog, I felt cold and clammy, and I couldn't imagine doing that myself. I like to stay warm and cozy. So yeah, now my own approach to setting with this is, the book is set in Central Oregon, but from the reading you heard me mention Barlow County. Barlow County, of course, is not real. It's a fictional county. And the reason that I decided to do that, I really love Central Oregon. I love the austerity of the desert and the depending on where you're at, you've got the ponderosa pine forests in some places, you've got beautiful mountains, you've got great rivers. And one of the problems with loving Central Oregon and Eastern Oregon is that everything is really far from each other. And I wanted to create a space that captured sort of the essence of a lot of different parts of the state, but I kind of jammed them all into my own little fictional county that I carved out of the middle. So I have sort of an analog to Smith Rock, and I have, my river is the Palmer River, but it's kind of based loosely on sort of a little bit the Deschutes and a little bit the John Day. And I've got a hill like Sutton Mountain, which is out near the Painted Hills. Shatter Hill is based on that. And so, I kind of grab places from all around. And that gives, the nice thing about that is it gives me sort of control of the landscape, but it's based very strongly on those particular locations. And I spent a lot of time, working very hard to create a sense of space out there. And of course, even Barlow County is named after Sam Barlow, who was a figure from Oregon history. Palmer River is named for Joel Palmer, who is also a figure from Oregon history. Barlow didn't have a county named after him, but he does have a town named after him in Oregon. So, there's even kind of a precedent there. But I really wanted to do something with that space. And, it's interesting.
What impressed me about reading your story was that graphic description in the first chapter, and not only the physical description, but the sensory aspects of it. You read through your story, and the threads all end up coming back around to those descriptions that you had in that first chapter. And I like that what comes around, it goes back around in the story.
Yeah.
You did some very nice work with that.
Well, thank you.
So how has it been having a book out and in this strange time? I mean, did you get any events out the door? I mean, or what's going on?
Well, we did. In fact, I come from, I've been here in Ridgefield about 2 years, and so last 30 up in the Seattle area. And so I had a book launch there and a book launch here. And then Bill and I went off on our joint ventures up in Seattle. We had several, 2 of the bookstores, university bookstores, and Queen Anne and others.
Yeah.
We did there, as well as here in Portland, several events that we've done. I've done one on the coast. Bill, you've done some others. I imagine we had some lined up, and we may end up, this may be the model for them.
Right. Yeah. And, I mean, and this is, this is what you got to do. It's important that everybody stays, as safe and healthy as possible. My wife is an ER nurse. And so, you know, I'm like especially attuned to wanting everybody to be safe because I don't want her to get overloaded and, you know, the people that do her work. So I think it's good that we do this. We were able to get, you know, some of our events in December and January. And then, you know, since then, things have been, not going to happen. And that's okay. Fingers crossed.
All right. Take care.
There now.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much for coming in.
Right.
Bye.